Welcome back. We're glad to have you back. If you've missed a lot during the summer, that's understandable. You may well be aware that there is an election going on. We've got Governor Eddie Calvo, the subject of much discussion, as he is the governor. The media often engages in a game of kill the king, whoever is king. It's funny. Some reviews are better than others. I was examining my views on the current race over the weekend. I've been accused on more than one occasion of backing the current administration on more than a few issues. I don't think that is an unfair statement. In fact, when it came to one of their early initiatives, the bond, I was an out-and-out booster. I absolutely thought that bond was the best course of action for Guam at the time. And I felt that had the legislature not fooled with it, the government of Guam would be in an even better place than it is now. There are certainly some areas that I disagree with the current administration. The plodding march towards making things more difficult for women considering their constitutionally approved decision on whether to terminate a pregnancy or not. Can't agree with that one. Those steps towards that. I have and do oppose the stance on Liberty Machine games, the proliferation of those at the neighborhood bars, taverns, and business establishments. I don't feel like that adds more to Guam than it takes away from Guam. I think the sort of net result of that is negative, and you haven't made any bones about that. And there are other places here and there where you find yourself wondering what the administration thinks on a variety of issues, finding very strong decisions in leadership in some areas, and in others finding patches of, well, the kind of government that we're used to, the kind of government that makes us wonder why the person in charge is still in charge. But I got something over the weekend that reminded me of something. And what it reminded me of was the climate that existed right around the end of the last Gutierrez administration. And what reminded me of it specifically was, I'm sure, a website aimed at undercutting what credibility Carl Gutierrez may have as a candidate at this point. It goes through, among other things, an opinion piece from the Pacific Daily News about the island not being better off than it was 8 years ago, and the answer from the PDN at the time being a resounding no. While they noted some of the decline may be attributed to the Asian economic crisis and the resulting effects it has on tourism, but the job of the governor, who serves as the leader of the island, is to guide our community through tough times. But the tough yet necessary decisions needed to accomplish that haven't been made. There was no meaningful, real effort to streamline government's operations and size to cut costs when revenues first began to decline, and there still hasn't been. They write at the time in the opinion piece, the political will to do the right thing and political collegiality has been nearly non-existent. They close talking about freedom of information, access to public documents, been severely restricted, a near complete lack of accountability, even when public auditor reports clearly show misuse and abuse of public funds. Test scores in public schools not only haven't improved, but have worsened. Promises and plans were made, such as Vision 2001, initiatives launched. A near total lack of follow-up and follow-through resulted in a lack of substantive accomplishments. Added to that, the need for accurate record-keeping was nearly universally ignored or placed on the back burner at best. The legacy of this administration appears to be a house in a runau, a triangle park, a lot of bills, and in general, a convoluted mess. That translates into a grade of F. So for his entire 8 years, the Pacific Daily News at the time reviews him, and in every category offered, every category reviewed, he receives an F. And one gets the feeling that the reason he got an F is that there wasn't a lower grade available. Now, contrast that with the seeming blissful ignorance of that position taken not so many years ago. It got me wondering whether the current PDN crew ever reads their own archives. I mean, they've got a whole series of stories in that particular collection don't exactly underscore a sentiment of, hey, let's give this Gutierrez fella another chance in a few years. If they were circumstances outside his control, let's give him another shot. No, none of that article says that. None of the articles containing there say that. It sounds a lot more like, here's our review of Guam's worst governor ever in virtually every category. I mean, so I gotta ask, have the facts changed? As a reader, as a consumer of news, what do you make of something like that? Was there some kind of management change? I guess Lee Weber's not there anymore. Was he the only one that agreed with that statement? Were there others that felt that somehow Carl Gutierrez got a bad deal? What I would expect with an editorial like that, on the record, not one that I made up, not somebody else's review, their review, I would expect headlines like, Gutierrez, again? Seriously? Or, how can we comb over what we already know? Or something clever like that. Probably more clever. So yes, I would have to say that there are plenty of valid criticisms of this current administration, even if you took those and added those that were deemed ultimately to be invalid and added them all together. Let's assume everything, valid, invalid, pure conjecture, was true that was said about this administration. I submit that the record would still leave them standing head and shoulders above, well, the 8 years of the Gutierrez administration as far as leadership, ability to get things done. How often did you hear him say, well, I can't do it because of the legislature? Does this legislature seem, in particular, more cooperative somehow? No. In fact, this legislature has a demonstrable record of making decisions based less on the long-term good of Guam than on the public opinion of the course of the next week. And yet, this particular governor is often, as he disagrees with the members of the majority, found ways to get a lot of things done, found ways around resistance, found ways around what looked like a place where there would be no further progress. So what I wonder is, has the public collectively forgotten about these things? Newcomers to the island, this is in fact something that you could look up. Residents of Guam, this is something that you could look up. Was there some huge achievement in the meantime that made you say, you know what, things were different? Has the performance of the current governor led you to say, do you know what, looking at everything as a whole, I think my best decision would be to return to a time when even the small victories were non-existent, where records and record keeping took a backseat only to things like transparency and public information, where department directors, untrained, unqualified, were assigned to handle situations that were embarrassing to the administration. Yes, this current administration might be a little patchy in places, but there is no denying there was a lot of uncovered acreage from the Gutierrez years that it'll be tough to comb over. It is time for news. Let's get to the Pacific News.